Hi friends, welcome back to 5 Minute Modern. My name is Cindy, and today we're diving into the vibrant life and work of John Giorno. Giorno is a singular figure in American art. Though technically a poet, Giorno has always blurred the traditional boundaries between visual arts, performance, and the written word, constantly expanding his practice and pushing the boundaries of his medium. Born in New York City in 1936, Giorno graduated from Columbia in 1958 and began immersing himself in the city's burgeoning pop art scene. Giorno had a number of relationships with leading pop artists like Robert Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns, and Andy Warhol. Warhol in particular would exert a major influence on Giorno. While Warhol and Giorno were still lovers, Giorno appeared in Warhol's film Sleep, a 5-hour and 20-minute recording of Giorno sleeping. Beyond the film, Giorno was inspired by the pop culture appropriation central to Warhol's work. Though he'd been writing poetry since his teens, Warhol inspired Giorno to take a new approach, appropriating texts from newspapers and using them to make poems. As he began publishing his work, Giorno also met Brian Gysin and William S. Burroughs, who were then working on the cut-up method, a literary technique in which printed text is cut up and rearranged to produce new juxtapositions. Beyond aesthetic considerations, Giorno embraced Burroughs' ideology behind the cut-up method, which proposed cutting and repositioning texts as a way to interfere with the ability of the mainstream organizations that initially produced those texts to control reality through crafted narratives. Gysin helped Giorno further his experimentations with the cut-up method by introducing him to sound poetry, in which recordings of Giorno reading his poems could be looped and cut. To me, this experimentation with sound poetry is key to understanding Giorno's work. Even reading his poems silently, I found myself pulled into a definite rhythm by the repeated words and phrases. Though I tend to think that most poetry rewards slow and careful reading, in reading Giorno, I found that each poem had a natural tempo. Though I was merely reading words on a page, I found the experience of reading Giorno to closely resemble listening to music. Given the musical nature of Giorno's work, it's perhaps unsurprising that in 1966, Giorno worked with Bob Moog, inventor of the synthesizer, to record synthesized versions of his poems. Giorno then used these recordings for what he termed electronic sensory poetry environments, meeting at churches or concert venues rigged with special lighting and incense to heighten the mood. Giorno played recordings of his poems on a loop, while guests occasionally enjoyed LSD or marijuana. In 1965, Giorno founded an organization called Giorno Poetry Systems, through which he produced vinyl records of readings by himself and other poets. 4 years later, Giorno would begin his most widely known and celebrated project, Dial a Poem. By calling a phone number, listeners could hear a recording of a poet reading their work. Giorno included works by a wide variety of poets, ranging from Amiri Baraka to Allen Ginsberg to Anne Waltman. Though the original Dial a Poem line was decommissioned following Giorno's death in 2019, in 2021 the Poetry Project stepped in to assist in establishing a new line. You can still call and listen to a recording of a poem by a contemporary poet, and the line still even includes a recording of Giorno's introduction.
Dial a poem.
Giorno often incorporated activism into his poetry, advocating for gay rights and protesting the Vietnam War. During the AIDS crisis, he established a fund to offer direct payments to artists struggling with the disease, saying that he wanted to be promiscuous with compassion. Giorno practiced Buddhism for much of his adult life, and though he never thought of himself as a Buddhist poet, his faith was central to his personality and undoubtedly influenced much of his activism. In 1981, Giorno ceased using found texts for his poems and began writing words and phrases as he thought of them, later silk screening some of these phrases onto canvas to create poem paintings. The poem paintings would be central to Giorno's artistic output in the final decades of his life. Giorno passed in 2019, but his legacy is carried on by his husband, Ugo Rondinone, himself a renowned artist responsible for works like Seven Magic Mountains in the Nevada desert. Giorno experimented with so many different forms of poetry over his long career that it's difficult to settle on a single legacy for him. But I have to say that Dial a Poem is a personal favorite among his projects. I find it amazing that we can just call a number and hear poetry. I think it serves as a reminder that poetry and art aren't something separate from our daily lives. Experiencing them is as easy as picking up the phone. Thanks so much for watching this one. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something new. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.